Rescued is a podcast of conversations with rescuers and those who've been rescued. It's about the lessons we learn about ourselves, the places we go and why, without judgment or shame, to help us have better adventures, manage risk and deal with the unexpected. You know, if news reports are anything to go by, it would be easy to think that being struck by lightning only happens to golfers or beach anglers. But my guest today is neither of those and shares her story of being struck by lightning while leading an outdoor activity on a school camp. Zuza, it's so lovely to have you here in the Rescue podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Cara. Thanks.
So tell me the Zuza story. Would you describe yourself as an outdoorsy person?
Yeah, I would. I'd say I spend pretty much 99% of my days outside most of the day. And I love that lifestyle. It's either for work or for play.
Think back to your childhood. When was that first memory, that connection to go, the outdoors? And, you know, was it a family camping trip or a hike or something else? What got you into the outdoors?
Yeah, so my parents didn't have a lot of money. They were immigrants to Australia, and so our holidays were outdoors. We didn't go camping, but they were always nature-based. And Mum loves nature. Dad loves rock hopping and sort of doing slightly risky things, and I sort of got a little bit of both from them.
So in an outdoorsy childhood, you were encouraged to spend time in wild places? Yeah,
definitely. And I'm also an only child, and I think one of the ways that I would entertain myself was we had this pretty big reserve near my house, and I would just always go for walks with my dog or alone and build my own tree house or just frolic through off track and just go exploring.
And can you explain how that felt, that being in those spaces and in those places?
Looking back on it with nostalgia, it gives me a lot of happiness to think about. But in the moment, I think it was just normal. It just was the way things were.
And so, you know, you went through high school, and did you go to university, or what sort of did the outdoors sort of affect the path that your life has taken?
At university, I studied environmental science and conservation biology. And after having a career actually as a chef, which I also really loved, I still recreated a lot in the outdoors. And that sort of led me to this point now where I changed my career, and now I'm an outdoor guide. Most of my work is outdoor education, directly with a school, which I absolutely love. And then I still do a little bit of canyon guiding and abseil guiding, sort of days here and there, which I really enjoy.
It's interesting you're in outdoor education now. So did you have those connections when you were at school? Did you have those opportunities to connect to like school camps and that kind of thing?
I do. Well, we had just normal school camp like once every few years, but our school didn't have a solid outdoor education program. There was an outdoor ed subject offered like in year 10 or something, and it's so silly when you're at school how your social surroundings can affect your choices, because I wanted to do it so much, but I didn't know a single person doing it, and so I chose not to do it. Which when I look back on now, I'm like, wow, that's just what teens do sometimes.
Yeah.
So I didn't do outdoor education at school, but I also have like fond memories of my camps. Like rock climbing for the first time on an indoor wall was like exhilarating, and just like doing drawings in nature in like year 6 camp. Like I remember that sort of stuff. So that definitely had an influence.
Can you explain what it feels like when you see those lights go on and you see those moments that spark in young people that you work with?
So sometimes like not everyone is going to really like love nature like I do, but if I can just form little seeds of memories that are good in nature, then that's sort of the bare minimum of like what I would like to achieve. And I think that that's actually a big thing, because you carry those moments with you and you never know when they pop up again in your future and you think, oh, well, I actually really like that there are trees in the world and I'd like the trees to stay in the world, and just like promoting that a bit of stewardship. And so sometimes, to be honest, kids don't get the spark and they don't love what they're doing, and it's hard, and they're hiking up that hill, and it's a struggle for them. When someone else smiles because they've done something and you know that you've helped them, like, you can't help but feel great too.
What advice would you give to someone who was thinking of taking kids out, or maybe it's they've got their own teens, or maybe they've got kids who want to join Scouts and they've been asked to be a volunteer Scout leader or get involved with their kids' Duke of Ed at school or something like that? What would you say to them to make their job easier, but also to maybe help try and bring that spark alive?
It depends on the kid. Show them a diversity of options. Start with a bushwalk to just a fun place, a nice place, and then let them have fun and just let them be free. Because I think that unstructured play will just happen. Feel relaxed, I think, in an environment is important.
So you love hiking, you canyon, you climb. Have you got any other outdoor children, I like to call them, like favourite children, favourite activities?
Yeah, I love ski touring as well, so much. So I got into that. Well, being from WA, we don't have much snow. So I always was drawn to the snow. But it was only until I moved to the East Coast I was like, yes, I'm near some mountains with snow. And I didn't realise how good it is here, especially for ski touring. It's awesome. But pretty much I'll try anything. If someone offers me something in the outdoors and I've got that day free, I'll be like, oh, yeah, give me something new to try. Yeah.
So take me to this day that we're going to talk about today. Where were you and what was planned? What happened from the very beginning of that day?
I was actually at work. I was subcontracted to another company in the Southern Highlands.
For those of us not familiar with New South Wales, tell me where the Southern Highlands are.
A little bit south of Sydney, but it's still got a bit of elevation to it, a few rolling hills, maybe an hour south of Sydney or so.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so rolling rural green hills.
Yeah, eucalypt forest, still really nice ridges and spurs, sandstone country. And I was working as an abseil guide. We did have a meeting in the morning and said, oh yeah, there'll be a thunderstorm coming through at some point in the afternoon. And I went to work right at the top of a ridge where there was a little cliff line where we were doing some abseiling with the kids, and we would have sort of like a rotation, and different groups would come just for an hour or two.
So the cliff is, just so we can visualise it, so how high was the abseil you were putting the kids through?
I think it was only between like 5 and 10 metres. It wasn't very big. It was very introductory.
But you're on a ridge location. Were you kind of the highest point in the area?
I must have been very high, but I wasn't right on top of this spur. I was a little bit down off the spur, but probably 10 metres of elevation at most. So still pretty high up. So the cliff line would have been below me, 10 metres. And I was working mostly at the top of this little cliff.
And you're in eucalypt forest. Were you in forested area, like with high canopy above you?
Semi-dry eucalypt forest. So not super tall, but definitely forested.
So you've been at the briefing meeting. You've heard that there's a storm. Was there any sort of mention about, it looks like we can see on the bomb or on the radar that it's going to be pretty gnarly, or just like, hey, there's a bit of a storm that'll roll round in the afternoon sometime?
Yeah, sort of those parts of my day now are pretty hazy. It was about 4 years ago. So I don't remember. Like, I think we said, yeah, it's probably going to be a big storm. I can't remember, though, if it was a bomb, if bomb had a severe weather warning or not, or if we were aware of that. Those sort of details I'm not sure, but definitely I do remember them saying, yeah, it could be a big storm. And, we had a rough time that it would come in, and I did have phone reception where I was stationed, but I think maybe not quite enough for data or something like that at the time, because I definitely remember that I wasn't able to check its location through a radar, which would have been really helpful, which would have been, really useful if I had that.
As an outdoor guide, just for those of us who are new to this as a profession, you mentioned that weather and risk management is part of the job. It's part of what you do. Were you the lead guide on the day, or like a 2IC? How does the team work? Like what kind of people are up there with you?
In this particular job, there was a base with people stationed there. It was quite a large group. I think there was maybe up to 300 students on the sort of in the area. Yeah, it was a big camp. But I would only get maximum 15 at a time come to see me in a rotation. And so there was a base camp with a few people working there who had radio comms with us, and there was 2 abseiling sites, myself and someone else. And that other person was not too far away. She was on the next ridge over. So I'd say 100 metres as the crow flies. That was it. And so it was sort of like my station, and I would get a group of students come through, and when it was their time to leave, I'd have a bit of a break, maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and I'd just sit and chill. So I actually had a group with me, and we could start hearing some thunder in the distance. And there came a point where it was necessary to stop the activity. So there is a rule in the industry that's called the 30-30 rule. And what it is a guideline to be able to know when to stop and resume an activity in case of a thunderstorm. So if you hear or if you see lightning and then hear thunder and it's 30 seconds, you need to stop the activity. So it's actually quite a long time when you think about counting to 30.
That's a really long time.
Yeah, and you can resume the activity once 30 minutes has passed since that 30-second or more has occurred. So we were sort of within that, sat all the students down, took off the harnesses and tried to wait it out, but we realised that it wasn't really going to pass before the end of the activity.
Were you waiting on the same site, like on the ridge there, or?
Yeah, we were. So I had them separated a bit from each other. Eventually there was a big enough break that we said, all right, let's actually move away from here. And so I got them to leave. It was sort of time was running out anyway, and it was probably better for them. It was like kind of a window like, oh, it's slowing down. You guys just go. So they left. And when they left, they went downhill. So that was very good.
What's the sky looking like at this time? And how is the sky changing throughout the day, if it was?
It was actually surprising that it was pretty patchy from memory. Like it was definitely a massive storm. Because I know that people even in the Blue Mountains, so over 100 kilometres away, were feeling the same storm. It was a huge cell that was coming through all the mountain. But I do remember that it wasn't completely dark and grey. You know, sometimes you really get clouded in with a thunderstorm, and it wasn't sort of that dark grey. It was still quite light. And
rain, was there, or wind? Do you have any memory of that?
I don't have a memory of the wind, but I remember, like a little bit of rain fell, but it wasn't too heavy yet. It's pretty dry, maybe a light drizzle. So then all the students, they left, and so it was just me. I think I was expecting another group relatively shortly, but with the thunderstorm, I thought, they're probably not going to be coming up here because it just kept booming. So in total, I think this storm was around for about 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it was massive, and it just stuck around. It didn't really move. It didn't just pass through. It's almost like it very slowly kept coming closer, rather than, like a quick passing through. I felt in the moment was just that energy. It was exciting. It was incredible to be hearing this deep bass roaring, clapping. You just feel like it's so powerful in that moment. Like nature is so powerful. And I was actually just so happy in that moment because it was so close. But obviously I was happy because I felt safe. because you don't expect that you could actually get hit. And I wasn't like out in an open field. I wasn't under one big tree. So I guess I felt safe enough in that moment. But it did start becoming a little too close. I'd stripped my harness off of me and left it out like far from me for a while now because it's full of metal, the harnesses. So I was like, I'll take that off. And it started like hammering down rain really, really strong. And the lightning to thunder time was starting to go from 10 seconds to 6 seconds to 5. And that's when I was like, nah, okay, I'm out. And I did what I think instinctually anyone would do, and that is to seek shelter, which I didn't have much of, but there was this perfect single person sized cavelet. And instinctually, you see a little cave and you think, I need to get in there. It's hammering down with rain. There's no other shelter except for my rain jacket that I was wearing. And yeah, it's like the lightning's like white around me now. I can't see where strikes are hitting. I can just see white. And so I'm in this little cavelet and I'm still having a great time. I'm still like, wow, it's so close. Completely feeling safe until it went from being really excited to suddenly I saw white, and I went from this crouching position in this tiny little cave to being thrown onto my back. And as soon as I opened my eyes, I was hyperventilating, just out of, my body just was hyperventilating. And I'm on my back and I'm really confused. I can feel that I could remember and feel that there was like a pain in my left foot, that I saw white, and now I was on my back. And then the thought crossed my mind, did I just get struck? That surely that's what just happened. But I didn't hear the thunder, and so I think I was a bit confused. But obviously, like, if you get struck, like, I don't know, I haven't spoken to anyone else that's been struck about this moment before, but maybe I can't hear the thunder because it's me, like, it's on me, and the thunder comes later. So, or it was just this whiteout moment in my mind, or blackout moment, but it was white. And so I'm on my back and hyperventilating. Then I realized I've been struck, and so my next reaction was to start like touching my head, touching my body, touching my knees. Like, it's like my brain was going, yep, you're here. Yep. Oh my God, I'm here and I'm okay. Am I okay? Like, I think I'm okay. And I just kept checking in. I was okay. I could swear I could smell something burning. So I was like checking my hair. Was my hair on fire? No, it's fine. That's okay. And then I was like, my foot. My left foot was the last thing to leave the ground. And then I think I've seen pictures before of people that get struck by lightning, and they have these incredible, I'm sure very painful, but incredible markings on them. And I was like, maybe that my foot's going to have that. So I took my shoe off and had a look, and it was fine. I was completely fine. And all this time that I'm checking myself and doing this, it is still hammering down, and the thunder and the lightning is right on top of me. It's like it's not moving. It's a slow song. So there's this intense energy still happening. It's not over. And suddenly, instead of being excited, now I'm pretty scared. And I'm terrified. And every time I hear that thunder, I'm just so scared. And I just stayed there. I didn't move. I didn't want to. I had my phone in my hand before, and I didn't want to touch my phone. I threw it a little bit away from me, and I was like, what if the phone conducted it? I just didn't know. And I lay there for a solid hour, just not doing anything but just laying there and waiting for this storm to pass. That's how long it was so close to me. And even maybe after an hour, it was like a 10-second sort of difference between the lightning and the thunder.
That's incredible. So the hour that you're lying there, can you remember what you were thinking, like what was going through your head?
I think it's one of those strange moments where time has very little meaning. It's just, it's long but short. It didn't really have much of a meaning. I didn't want to look at my phone, so I didn't really know what the time was. I was still hyperventilating for a little bit, and then it slowed down, but my heart was racing for quite a while. So I must have had a lot of adrenaline as well, which also can interfere with like how you perceive time. I just waited. Yeah.
So you checked your foot. There was none of those patterns that you talked about. Your heart was racing. You were lying on your back. Was there any other symptoms? Like, did you have a headache or any pain anywhere in your body or tingling? You smelt something or you thought you smelt something?
Yeah, so besides feeling like I'd smelt something burning, which I don't know if it was or if it was a phantom smell, because it passed relatively quickly, kind of like a candle burning out, like it was quite quick. And the foot felt like I'd had a little bit of tingling pain still in the foot. Not pain, just this tingling sensation. But eventually that passed. So besides those two things, I was just completely fine. Nothing wrong. Completely fine. And that made it interesting because it just was so surreal. I still couldn't believe that what had happened. I said it to myself, like, I think I got struck, but it was definitely, I think. It was really surreal state to be in.
Massive thanks for the support from the team at Paddy Palin, who since 1930 have been leaders in travel and outdoor adventure. In fact, did you know that Paddy himself, a member of the Sydney Bushwalkers Club, was a volunteer in the original search and rescue arm of the Federation of Bushwalking Clubs in New South Wales? Nice one, Paddy. And so you'd thrown your phone away and you'd said that you had radio comms. But I guess the radio is something metal, and if you've still got this storm, like at what point did you pick up the radio and try to actually contact your colleagues, and what happened?
So probably after it started to pass a little bit, like when I felt like, yeah, it's left, it's gone, or it's going, it's not over me anymore. So about an hour, it stopped raining, or not raining much, and I went outside this little cavelet, and I don't know, looked around. The first thing I did actually was probably tried to get on radio, and I didn't get a response. So then I left it, and then I tried again after a while, and I didn't get any response. So I was like, all right, well, it's not working for whatever reason. And then I grabbed my phone, and I was like, that need of like, I need to talk to someone because I'm alone right now, and I've had this experience, and it's been a while of being alone, and I need to talk to someone. So the first thing I did was call my partner, who was in the Blue Mountains, and it rang out. It went to message. I was like, okay. And then I tried to call a friend, and the same thing. It rang out and went to message bank. And then I had the strangest thought that I 100% was seriously thinking for a split second, because I couldn't contact anyone on radio and because I couldn't contact anyone on my phone. I had this split second thought, maybe I am dead. And this is my brain. This is what happens, that your brain tries to recreate your last moments, which it's able to do with my surroundings, but I can't talk to people. And then I was like, and then I shook it up and I was like, no, I am alive. But for a split second, I honestly believed that was a possibility. I was like, maybe I am dead. So, yeah.
Wow.
That was a really surreal after effect.
Like a Stephen King novel kind of thought. I can't even imagine what is going through your head, like apart from the split thought that might be your reality. Do you have words to describe the space, the mental space that you were in that little cavelet at that time? Yeah,
I was still a little bit sort of elevated, I'd say, sort of a little bit hyper in my body and my mind. It was definitely not my normal state of consciousness. It was slightly like sort of elevated.
So your phone has rung out. You've got message bank.
Mm.
Is the storm still?
The storm now is definitely past, and no one's arrived for their abseil. So I'm like, I can't contact anyone in comms. So I thought, well, I might just go for a little walk, and I'll go to this other guide and see if they're okay.
And did your body feel normal at that point? Like you'd picked up your harness with all the metal bits hanging off it, and did you pack up your station? Or
No, I left my harness. I just stayed there. I left everything. I just went for a wander, and I definitely had calmed down enough that I felt like I could do that. That I could like walk away from this, because you sort of don't want to leave, even though it was a place of danger a moment ago. It's the place that you know, and I hadn't actually been to the other site before. I had to sort of go and walk into the bush and sort of follow the ridges and find her. But yeah, I felt okay enough to do that. And like I said, I started actually kind of being a bit confused. Like, did that really happen? Like, I didn't know, like, no one, it's like no one saw it. It's something that I felt. And so it was easier to question that, because how could I have been struck? Like, it was also so surreal and so weird that could have happened. But yeah, I felt all right to walk over, and I definitely wanted to talk to someone, and I wanted to see if she was okay, because it was a gnarly storm. So I found her, and she was chilling. She was happy. She was just chilling, reading a book. And I was like, I don't know what, I was like, oh, you're all right. Like, but in my head, I'm like, what do I say? Like, and then eventually I was like, do I say it? Like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll say it. I was like, I think I got struck by lightning. And then she looked at me and she said, oh, I saw a strike hit your ridge. And I was like, it didn't just hit my ridge, it hit me. And that's when it confirmed it. Because she had view of the next spur over, which is where I was, and she saw that lightning hit the top. So yeah, that was that extra confirmation of like, yeah, that is actually what happened. But I was standing there talking normally, and so that was probably still pretty surreal for her as well.
Unbelievable. So what did you know before this time of, what happens in the bush, or what you should do if there's a storm? How do you avoid it? What kind of stuff did you know through training?
I knew don't be at the very top of anything. Don't be out in the open. Don't be under trees, but mostly like a singular tree somewhere in a field. Like, it's really bad. If you are caught, then sort of squat down and have your heels together, or stand on something insulating.
And you mentioned that that when the group was still with you, the kids, you'd spread them out. You made them spread out?
Yeah, so spreading a group out rather than having everyone together, because anyone could be a conductor and then pass that lightning on to someone else, yeah. And, we do have, maybe training's not the right word, but we do have, we talk about these things when we do our, course to become the guides. It's still, you feel like it's still such a unlikely thing to happen. As long as you do those things, you'll be fine. And I kind of did all those things, but I did do some things wrong, and I've learned a lot through it now, the experience. So one of the big things that I've learned not to do is to go into little caves. And that reason is, I don't know if this is in every case, but I think definitely the ironstone that exists within our sandstone probably doesn't help, or probably helps too much with conducting through the ground. So for instance, what probably happened in my case is that the lightning hit the top of the ridge, and then it moved through the ground. It got to the end of, let's say, the top of my little cave, and it has nowhere to go. So then it just moves down, and it has to hit the ground. And so I was standing in the way. And that's what can happen to you if you're in a small cave seeking shelter, is it can actually move through you because it has nowhere else to go.
So you've walked across to the other ridge, you've met up with your colleague, you've shared what's happened to you. Whew. What happens next? I mean, do you go to the doctor? Do you get yourself checked out? Do you go to hospital? How's your body feeling? How's your mind feeling?
felt completely fine. I got really, really, really lucky. And I must have gotten such a small jolt that I was completely okay. It was still big enough to lift me off my foot, like in a crouching position. I went from crouching to on my back. Like I jumped, like it still did that to me. But besides that, I was completely fine. And I did not go to the doctor. And maybe I should have, but when you feel completely fine, you just don't. I'm like, well, what's the doctor going to, like, how are they, what tests are they going to do on me to, like, yes, you've had electricity run through you, or like, I was fine. And so, definitely, like, if I felt something over a few days, I would have been checked out, but I was fine. And it probably is a good idea to just go to the doctor and just have it checked up. But yeah, I didn't.
Do you have a personal story about an incident or time during an outdoor trip when something didn't quite go to plan? Maybe you got lost, injured, let down by some gear, or something else. Look, honestly, it can happen to any of us at any time, regardless of how experienced we are. And it's by sharing these stories that we can all learn and help avoid them in the future. If that's you, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email to rescued@lotsoffreshair.com. That's LOTSA freshair.com. So how do you feel? How do you reflect about storms now?
I've started to become more comfortable with them and maybe like less fearful but more knowledgeable and more. I take them a lot more seriously. But for, probably a good 3 years, I would get that sort of that trauma response from a thunderstorm, from once loving them to being really, really scared when I was out. But now I can still appreciate them, even if I'm caught out in a storm. But I'm a lot more, they don't necessarily excite me in the same way that I felt on the day before I got struck. But I'm not completely getting that trauma response, and just time seems to help that for me.
What's changed for you, do you think, as a result? Like when you were prepping to go out on a trip, so, we've all got, whether it be for recreation or it's for work or, something, we've got usually got a bit of a checklist or a plan of things that we do. We might check the weather. Has anything in that regard changed for you, the way you, like you said, you actually have gone and learnt some more about weather, or you feel differently in terms of how you look at forecasts, or you look at radars a bit differently. Does that sort of play to your mind at all?
Yeah, I think I'm just like have another layer of cautiousness on me than maybe some people around me might have, because I've had that experience, and I just know that it can happen, and just how powerful thunderstorms are in many ways, both in their sort of flash flood setting through canyons, but also through the lightning setting. And so I think I have just maybe that next added layer of sort of risk aversion to them than maybe someone else might. And it's not to say like I ever felt blasé about them, but I definitely just am a lot more serious if it's forecast or if I'm caught out in one.
And you're not a golfer and you're not a beach fisher person.
No. There's a great page through Outdoors New South Wales. It can be sort of found, of a really great American study and recommendations page. And they have a lot of really good information about thunderstorms. And they say that 50% of all people, or all deaths caused by lightning, 50% is in the category of outdoor recreation. So people who are recreating outdoors. So it's quite a lot. And I think, as a guide and also as a person who just loves the outdoors, when you're out in them all the time, you are increasing your risk. And it feels like it's this like 1 in a million thing. But one of the stats? Like, do you know? I don't know if you've looked at the numbers, but do you know how many people in Australia die of lightning strikes a year?
I do not know.
Yeah, it's between like 6 and 10
A year.
a year in Australia. That's more than sharks. And the other one on top of the deaths is like the injuries. Over 100 like serious injuries. And then there's all the unreported lightning strikes. Like it's not reported. Like there's no, I don't know if there is, but like you don't feel like you have to report a lightning strike. And so it's actually quite a lot, really, when you think about it. Yeah.
So did you find that as a result of this, and you said, you had these trauma reactions for a few years afterwards, and it's slowly, you're still working through some of that, but did you find that you had this curiosity too after it? You wanted to go and find out more and find out some stats and find out other things. Did you learn some more that would be helpful for us about lightning and what other behaviours we can do apart from, the separation and the crouching and getting off the high point?
I shared my story through like my socials, and I had 2 friends reach out and say, I've also been struck. So that made me realize, oh, wow, like it's definitely not an isolated experience. So that was interesting, just through that experience to learn about people I knew that had been struck. And like then you think, oh, how many other stories are there out there of, of people in this industry or in the outdoors? Yeah, some of the learnings that I had were, like, I definitely learnt a bit more about lightning and about the different types of strikes that can happen, because you get a direct strike or like a side strike, which is maybe what I had, where like, but that's the classic one would be it hits a tree and then it bounces off the tree. The tree is a conductor and then it comes to you, which can kill as well, and causes, I think, like a majority of deaths. And then you've got ground strikes. So, yeah, just standing on the ground and it conducting through the ground and then coming up to you. So I think, and that one's also like very, very the most common for people. Whilst a direct strike is actually very uncommon to get hit by a lightning bolt is just very uncommon in comparison to the other 2. And also the thing that confused me the most was I seeked shelter. That's what I did, and I did it in a very instinctual way. There's a little cave. I'm going to go into that little cave. And I guess what I learnt through talking to people actually in the industry that just have been in it a lot longer is don't do that. Don't go into little caves because it's actually more dangerous. Being out in the open is potentially safer. But the most important thing that I really should have done, the biggest takeaway is I should have just walked downhill. That's all I needed to do, just go downhill. I guess I didn't really feel like, oh, I'm not right at the top and there's a big forest here. But, yeah, just if in doubt, just walk downhill.
I love how simple it is too. But like you said, it's so instinctual. And I know I've done it too. So this is really good learnings for all of us. Yeah, for all of us for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And how do you feel now? So you said it's 4 years ago. Like, are you reminded of this experience when you go out now, or is it only when you maybe hear a storm or see big clouds gathering?
Because I got so lucky, despite like, yeah, those moments when I'd have when I'm in a thunderstorm for a few years, feeling that sort of that like trauma feeling coming up, anxiousness, and fear, like just pure fear, like I just don't want to be here. Besides that coming up, which has definitely just passed with time, I don't look back on it. It kind of feels like I now have this story under my belt. I'm just lucky. I was extremely lucky because I was completely fine. I didn't sustain any injuries as far as I know. And so what I'm left with is a story. Just taking storms a lot more seriously, both in work and my play.
Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up? Closing thoughts that you'd love to leave us with?
I've definitely been in situations with friends, say walking out of a canyon, up on a ridge, and a thunderstorm's coming through, classic summertime, like late summer or summertime pattern. And friends, and this is actually before I got struck, and friends have been a bit blasé about it, like, oh, it's fine. I'm like, oh, maybe we should just like stop for a moment. They're like, no, it's fine. Now, if I'm in that kind of situation again, I think I'd just be very assertive and be like, no, there's no way, I'm not moving and you guys aren't moving. And I would just sort of actually be that, I would take control, and I always have the card to play, like, I got struck, guys, so you got to listen to me, because I did get struck and we're not moving, or we're moving downhill, or whatever we need to do. So I think I've probably developed that more assertiveness of, I know what to do now, and I know why, and I know it can happen, because I'm living proof that it can happen, and I just got really lucky. So I think that is something that has changed me for the better.
And now all of us can do that too. We can say, wait, hang on, I know someone. I heard this story from Zuza and she got struck, and it's much more common than you think. And what did you say? 50% of the people who get struck are people who are out in the outdoors recreating.
Yeah.
We are some of those people. So, yeah. So, Zuza, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's powerful, powerful stuff. And I think sometimes it takes a lot of guts to share a story, especially when you know that you've had things that you've changed and you've learnt through it as well. So, yeah, I really honour it and thank you for that. So, cheers to you.
Thanks, Caro.
If you've enjoyed this powerful story, or one of the many others from my super generous guests, you can help more people connect and hear these valuable lessons simply by leaving a 5-star review. And why not even click that little bitty share button on your podcast app and help your outdoorsy mates find it too. The Rescued podcast is produced on the unceded lands of the Gundungurra people of the Blue Mountains of New South Wales. I pay my respects to the elders past and present and acknowledge their enduring connection to and care for country. Special thanks to our sponsors, Paddy Palin. This has been a Lots of Fresh Air production.